Welcome to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I'm Kyra Mitchell-Lewis, and thank you all for joining. Hope everyone is doing well. I hope you're having a good week so far. Today, I'll be joined by Susan Stutzel. Susan is passionate about freeing professional women from self-sabotaging goals and helping them to build a life of purpose. She helps her clients ditch overwhelm by finding their voice through the process of rebuilding habits and expectations so that they can feel successful both professionally and at home. Stay tuned. I'll be right back with Susan. Welcome back to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I'm Kyra. All right, now I am joined by Susan. So welcome, Susan, into the Glow Up Girl podcast.
Thank you, Kyra. It's amazing to be here.
Awesome. Well, before we dive into our conversation, why don't you get started by telling everyone out there listening and watching who you are and what you do?
Great. Well, my name is Susan Stutzel. I am a CPA and a leadership coach. So I have the privilege of working not only with people with numbers, but also in their personal and business lives to help them level up in all areas. I live in Eastern Iowa with my husband and 2 kiddos and just have an amazing life that I love to share.
Awesome. Yeah, she's very talented, everyone listening, watching, because to combine the numbers and the leadership aspect, I mean, telling you, kudos to you.
It's the best of both worlds, really.
Yeah, I mean, I go on and on all the time about how I'm not really a numbers girl. You know, the numbers sometimes are like a little frightening. We have this running joke in my house with my husband where he goes, "It's like you don't even think about it a lot." Since he's like, all you have to do is visualize the numbers on top of each other. And I'm like, yeah, like give me like simple things like multiplication tables, like division. But like, when it comes to like, subtracting big numbers or, and I know this is something very small, minute compared to what you do for, a living, but I'm just sort of that numbers thing. I always like laugh about that. I'm like, I'm a creative. I'm not a numbers girl.
Numbers is just another way to tell the story.
This is so true. And it's often the best way to tell the story. So I appreciate numbers and people that are good in those areas because I can take that and it can help me to tell a better story.
Absolutely. We just have to surround ourselves with people that are strong in areas when we're not. And that's exactly right. I have to surround myself with creatives because I am not as good in that area. So yeah, this is a perfect connection.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about one of the ways that you help women is in an area that a lot of us, love, and we love planning. We love setting goals. We have them. I set goals at various points of the year, all the time, but sometimes our goals can sabotage us, right? And cause overwhelm because we set these goals. Can you talk about how that happens?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I laugh about sometimes because I think it's more often than not, we do this to ourselves, right?
Yes.
And what I've found is this happens because we think about our goals when we're at work and we think about them career related. Mm-hmm. And then when we're at home, we think about our personal goals, right? And the new year comes around and it's like, okay, the whole year, this looks so bright and amazing ahead of me. So what am I going to do this year? But we fail to really look at it from a holistic perspective and look at goal setting for our life. And so one of the things I heard early on in my career was a woman recommended to me every year she would set a career goal, mm-hmm. a health goal, a spiritual goal, and a personal goal. Mm-hmm. And so kind of encompassing all the areas of her life. And then she would work at those throughout the year. Because I think often, like I said, that New Year's comes around. Some of us do it on our birthday, an anniversary. Like I think it is different points in the year, but mm-hmm. we think about it from the perspective of, oh, what am I going to do? But only focusing in one area. Mm-hmm. So when we can connect it, I think it's much less overwhelming because we think we can just race to the moon and we can do everything perfectly at home. And then one gets in the way of the other. And it's this like constant battle. And then we're just piling on ourselves and it's mm-hmm. exhausting. So when do you set, you said at different points in your life. So I'm curious for you, when are those points for you?
I'm like a quarterly goal checker because so like I will, I will look at where I am at the end of the year, and then I will set, but mine are like more holistic. They are like the career and like business, personal goals, like all those. So I don't set too many. I try to set like maybe 4 in different areas. And then I look at them at the end of like every quarter to see like, how am I progressing? Because I find that like, I think it gets overwhelming when, even though you're like working on them, but like sometimes quarterly allows for me to be honest with myself about where I am. It's like, okay, so, and then to celebrate the small wins, because it takes there are a lot of small bullet points, as I like to say, underneath each of those goals that you set for yourself. Like the goal you set is usually a big goal. You say, oh, I set a goal, related to fitness, and I want to, I don't know, I'm just going to use it. I want to lose 20 pounds. Well, what comes inside of 20 pounds? It's a shift in nutrition. It's like adding in workouts, having a plan. And so you sort of start to I like to look at things like, oh, okay, yes, been doing this. Oh, may not have met the 20-pound mark yet, but I've gotten, 5 pounds off in some inches. So I think it's like important for us to figure out how to like celebrate those small wins and do it almost in bite-sized pieces. So when you get to the end of the year, it's not just like this one time where you're revisiting and going, oh man, I didn't meet those goals. And then people tend to beat themselves up.
Yes. Thank you for saying that you celebrate the small wins, because that is one of the biggest pieces. Because we set this big goal, and then it's like, that's one check mark that we get, and either we made it or we didn't. And that's not how it's intended to be. It's the small steps. And so celebrating that. And I always like to point out that there's a reason that kids love video games, because video games give them points when they get to levels, when they do tiny things, right? It's grab this, check this, get to this point. And it's a point rack up. Well, it's because we like to be rewarded. And I think as women, we tend to be the worst at rewarding, right?
Oh,
if
for sure.
Kids, what do we do when they do something great? We reward them. Right. But for ourselves, I think we forget. So I love that you said that. And it is important, but also just decide what you're going to do. Like, how will you celebrate that win? And sometimes it's taking the first step, like just that first tiny actionable step, and celebrate it really big, because that gives you the momentum to take the next one.
Yes. Yeah. I think that if we could just somehow, if women could shift that mindset, that it's okay to celebrate the small things, because you see it everywhere. You see it in the career, you see it in all aspects of like, well, we finished this really big, we'll finish projects at work that were really big, really daunting, a lot of work, a lot of people involved. And you'll see like everybody just being like, oh, we did it, so let's move on to the next. And it's like, no, let's stop. Take a moment, let's celebrate it, because it took the collaboration of all the people to do this thing. And so it's like, you have to remember that. And I know everything happens so fast, and everything is just like moving at the speed of light, but you have to like take those quiet moments, because I think when you do that, then you'll approach that every way to everything in your life.
Yeah. Absolutely. The quiet moment is really important to just recognize what got you here, and recognize how amazing you are for doing that, taking that moment before you move on, because it is a fast-paced world. We keep moving, we keep going faster and moving on, but we've got to take those moments. And I think, for women, taking a quiet moment, like, that's such a beautiful space to be in.
Yes.
But I think that's important for us. And too often I feel like celebrating feels like it has to be this really big thing. Like it has to be a big event, or I have to go spend a lot of money, or, do something big. And sometimes it could just be a quiet few minutes.
Yes. Yes, I definitely agree with you. Celebrating at this point for me has become like, oh, I'm going to watch this show that I really like to watch, and I'm going to watch it in, like in this room, because like normally, like if I'm in my office here and, I have the TV on as, background while I'm working and doing different things. And a lot of times you're not like 100% like tuned in. So there are like shows that I like. And so when I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to actually go in the media room. I'm not going to take my laptop and not take anything other than me. I'm going to sit there and I'm just going to enjoy this 30-minute show. And it's so cool to like, I mean, that feels that's it's gotten to that point. That's what feels like rewarding myself.
Yes, it's true. It's simple things. I love to sit down with a book. And it's like, I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to read and I'm not going to feel bad about it at all.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You know what? I mean, I know I'm going a little bit off script here, but like right before this morning, right before our session, I was just thinking to myself, I walked in the kitchen to get some water and I said, wow, it's so interesting how I remember a life when I was younger where I didn't used to have things to do on the weekends. And I would be like, just, you just be lounging, hanging out, just sleep until noon and all those things. I can't remember the last time I slept past like 7:30. But but I just thought about that and I was like, but you have to create those moments. And I think it's one of the other things I know that's important to you and you focus on is like creating those boundaries, right? Creating those boundaries that help you. Because I was thinking about, it's like, yeah, it's great to have like, I've got all these things I want to accomplish, but within those, I still have to leave room and create these boundaries that allow for me to have those moments of, like you said, quiet, still doing whatever it is that brings you, that is like self-care for you, peace for you, joy. And not that the things that you're working on don't bring you joy, but it's still work.
Yeah, that is true. So yeah, boundaries are an important aspect of it. And I feel like that you recognize where a boundary needs set wherever you feel chaos in your life, right? Mm-hmm. So when you feel an area that just feels like it's getting out of control, that's where you need a boundary. And maybe it's at home, maybe it's at work, but it actually reminds me of a woman that I was coaching about a year ago. And she was in a field that in the middle of COVID was very stressful. People had to show up for work in person. And so she's like, you know what, I want an open door policy. I want to be that leader that allows people to come in when they need to really be there for my people. And it was just so important to the core of who she was. Yet she was so stressed out with not getting any of her work done. And so she's like, at the end of the day, I'm actually staying till midnight. Then I'm not seeing my kids. I'm barely seeing them in the morning, and it just was getting out of control. And that was where she recognized, she's like, I need some help. So she decided that for part of her morning, after she checked in with her staff, she was going to set aside from like 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock to do her work. And she was going to put a note on her door that she was unavailable. And it was so hard for her to do because she just is that person that wants to be welcoming. Yeah. But she did that and her staff started and she let them know ahead of time. And instead of saying, what do you mean you're not going to be available? They congratulated her. They were like, we're so glad that you're doing this for yourself. We don't want you to be here all hours of the night. Right. We want you to be healthy too and feel good. And so where she really felt like she was struggling with having to tell them about that, they were just really waiting for her to do that for herself. And so not only did they help her set that boundary, they said, we're not going to touch. And they were making sure everyone else, new people that came on or people that came in from other departments, they're like, oh no, she's not available right now, but I'll make sure that she knows you were here. Yeah. And it was just this beautiful thing that transformed, that really started out as her mindset and that I need to be available.
Yes.
And she started that.
I love that. That's a great example because I feel like that is what a lot of women do. We always want to be available to people all the time. And I think like you said, you have to establish some boundaries for yourself. I mean, I think like in all of my jobs, like I've always like tried to allot the 8 to 10 slot for focus time, so that I could like work myself and just have that time to get the week, the day started. Because I'm like, well, because once those meetings start, how that can be. I just started a new job with a different company earlier this year in May. And and before I hadn't done that yet, hadn't put those boundaries in place because I was just like, like you said, I had a new job, I had a new team. I wanted everybody to feel like, I was always like I was available to them. And we use Slack as a communication tool. Yeah. And the pings of Slack
constant.
Like they're like constant all the time. And so eventually, once I got like rolling in, the job after a few months, I was like, I have to go back to my focus time, because I was finding that, I was in meetings, like starting as early as 9:00. And I was like, oh my God, like I can't like this just like, it's like 9 to noon. And then there's like a small lunch break and then it starts again. And it's like, I can't do this. And, and I found, you find yourself at like 5:00 is the time that you can start working, because that's the time that the meeting's finally in. And so I implemented in that time. And then actually I put in a 4 to 5 o'clock block as well, so that I don't mind obviously working, like I don't mind working longer or staying a little bit later. I work at home. So, but still it's like, at least if I block it at 4, that means I can start that like working and wrapping up things that I need to get prepared for the next day.
Yes. Yeah, that's really important, I think, to allow yourself that time, not only at the beginning of the day, but also at the end of the day. And I do run into that very often with professionals, is that they run right up to the end of their day. And it's like, oh, now I got to leave and pick up my kids, or I got to start dinner, or, whatever that next thing is. And they don't allow themselves that time to kind of wind down a little bit, wrap up their day, kind of finish their thoughts, look forward to the next day, to really move into the next day in what feels like a more successful capacity.
Exactly. Yes. So as boundaries, as we look at boundaries and the relation between boundaries and our goal setting, because, we have these goals, got dreams, we want to do everything. How do we work boundaries into our own personal like goals? And I know you talked about, maybe looking at big buckets of opportunities for goals of your life. What else would you suggest?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think you do a really good job of that, really. And you have the big goal, you have the big dream, because I do believe in dreaming really big. But then you've got to break it down. And so I recommend starting with, what's that big goal? Like, where do you see yourself a year from now? And then break it down, just like you did, into the quarterly. Okay, what can I do on a quarterly basis? And then break it down to, what can I do in a month? And then just start creating some routines that you can implement, and just choose that one simple thing. Like, what's the first simple thing that you can do? Like you mentioned, working out. I think that's something I set at the beginning of every year. I want to work out more this year. And so sometimes that first easy thing is to set out your workout outfit, so that when you walk into your closet in the morning, that's the first thing you see, and go, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it on. And even if I don't work out, I'm going to put on the workout clothes, because that tiny little step that you take actually gets you, and it's like, well, now I'm dressed for it. I might as well step outside. But I only like to go outside to work out if it's nice out. So I might just go to my basement.
Yes.
But choosing just that one simple thing, because I think, again, we often don't break it down enough into the small pieces that are actually doable, that actually feel like we can take that step, and then celebrate it. Like, hey, I did get up early this morning, and I got dressed, and I got down to the weights.
Yes.
So celebrating those little things along the way, I think, can go a long way in helping us actually reach the goals, but we have to make it actionable. And I believe that that's where a lot of us fail, is that we don't break it down enough. Like literally action steps. And then as far as the celebrating and the point gathering, like our video games, I use Excel a lot, and I set those small goals that I want to create into my routine. And I give myself a check mark every day that I do that, every time that I do that. And then you look back over the week and over the month, and you're like, dang, I didn't do it every day, but I don't focus on that. I focus on, how many times did I do it? and then compare it to last month. And it's like, oh, I did it 5 times more this month. And just start building, because the more that we can build into actual routines, then we don't think about it anymore. And once we've started getting up in the morning, putting on the workout clothes, going down to work out, now we start to do it without thinking about it. And the more that we can do that, our brain is freed up to focus on other things, and we can focus on the next step in the goal, because now we've already like automated our brain to do the first part.
Yes, I love that. So many great nuggets in what you just said. I think one thing that really is important, I had to do this for myself because I work out in the mornings, and I was doing it like every day. Like I was working out at least 5 to 6 times a week. And then I recently this year just was like, you know what? I'm like, it's okay sometimes for me to say, I want to sleep. So like I get up at about 5:50 every day. And then I said, well, some days, maybe on like Wednesdays and Fridays, I'm going to get up at 6:30. And I'm going to do like just my bike and then take my pup out for a walk. And then on the other days, I do the bike, I do like a strength workout, and then I take my pup out. But it took me a really long time to get to the point of being okay with that, because I felt like for a minute, like I was failing at first, because I'm like, well, you're not doing all the things you should be doing. But then one day I had like an honest conversation with myself, and I was like, who are you letting down? No one. Because guess what? There are a lot of people who don't even take the action or the step. You're just sleeping for like literally like 40 more minutes, 40 more minutes, which I mean, I know doesn't sound like a lot, but like when I get up at 6:30 and I'm like, oh, I slept to 6:30.
It feels so good.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that. And it's constantly reevaluating and pivoting to what is going to serve you. And so sometimes that self-care and that extra 40 minutes and changing up the workout is exactly what you need.
Yes.
Because it sounds like you're a very driven woman. And so once you set a goal, you're going to meet it. And I am the same way. So sometimes that discipline works against us, doesn't it?
Yes.
It's like, oh, I'm doing it every day. But wait, I actually need something different to fill me up. And so I love that pivot of, you know what, twice a week, and defining the days, and then saying, here's how I'm going to do it differently.
Yes.
And it's still being active, but it's getting a little bit more rest, and it just looks a little bit different. It's not right or wrong. It's just a little bit different.
Yes. And, and I know anybody listening, watching, like, I know you have to give yourself grace, because that's what I started telling myself, like, girl, give yourself grace. Oh my gosh. Like, it's not like you're not doing it. And then even when there's a day that I decide, you know what, actually, I want to just start work a little bit earlier today. I'm going to get up at 6:30 and just go downstairs and start working. Then I give myself that, because I'm thinking, okay, if I can get a jump start on these things, that means I don't have to do this on Saturday. And I can have like more, rest on Saturday, or time to just do something else that I want to do.
Yeah. Constant reevaluation, giving ourselves grace, really working through every single day, because we're not meant to be robots that do everything exactly the same every single day. We're not supposed to be, so we shouldn't. We have to remember that we're human.
Exactly. So how can we feel successful, both professionally and at home?
I think it really comes down to defining success. Because I don't know about you, but early in my life, early in my career, I felt like success was this huge, unattainable, glamorous, outlandish lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
I don't know where it comes from, but it just is fed into us. And it just, once we get into our life, it feels so unattainable. And so I actually work with a lot of professionals, specifically women, on defining success. So once you can really put a finger on what does success look like for you, and then go after it. And it's about really knowing what's most important. And I think the older we get, the more that we understand it. But man, if I could have known this 20 years ago, how much better off I would have been. So really just looking at personally, what is it that you want out of your career? What is it that you want out of life? And really defining. I think we often kind of, I know what's most important to me. But if you really could define it and then go after that and not worry about that it's not the same as your friends. Don't worry about that it's not the same as your coworkers. It's not the same as your family or what anyone else maybe thinks it should be. It's really about what you want and then going after it with everything you've got, because anything great is worth working hard for. But we've got to define what that is and then give it our everything. And sometimes success just means sitting down to dinner at 6:00 with your family. And so don't let anything else get in the way of that. Just decide what's most important. So I think success is a huge one, but really knowing what it is instead of going after this thing that you can't define and you're not sure what it is. And so if you don't know what it is, you're not going to know when you get there.
Exactly.
You got to know what it is and go after it.
I love that. And I so agree. I mean, because at one point, probably 20 years ago, it was the thing that you saw on TV, right? It was the life you saw that somebody had on TV. Now it's the life that you see somebody has on like social media. And it is true. It does change. It evolves over time. I can remember, like you said, when you're younger, especially when you're professional, it looks like, oh, I want to have this job and this title and be doing these things. And then I don't know about you, and if you've seen this in the women that you work with, I would probably say in the last, like COVID, right, happens, and that just sort of changed. That I know for me, it changed. I know for me, it like changed everything, and things that you thought were important or things that you were things that I was personally trying to achieve or obtain. Well, those things just like fell to the background, and I had a shift in like what was important for me. So it is like you said, success today looks different, and it's not about like, oh yeah, I had to get this job and by this age and make this amount of money. No, it's just about like wanting to be happy, finding continuous joy in my house with my husband and my puppy, like having a good life, being a good person, being a good, kind person who can help other people, find their like unique strengths, talents. I mean, those are like success pivoted. And it looks very different now, like you said.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think COVID hit and it shifted a lot of perspectives. I was working with one woman specifically who was just trying to kill it. She owned her own business. She was like, I'm going to be the best of the best. And she was going after it. COVID hit. She's, at home. Her kids are at home. Her husband still had a job where he left during the day. But she just said she just had this overwhelming shift, and that she's like, my kids are only here for so long and I'm going to miss it if I continue at the pace that I was going. And she's like, I actually am going to cut my business in half and I'm going to work half time so that I can have these years. And then after that, maybe I'll shift again. But right now, this is what's most important. And I think that helped a lot of people really reevaluate where they're at. I think that's a lot of why this, great resignation, great reshuffle, whatever we're calling it these days, I think that that's happening because people are reevaluating their lives and what's most important. And my hope is that they really focus on what that means and then they go after it instead of trying to get back to where it was before or, some semblance of what used to be, but really knowing what's most important now and going after it.
Yes, Susan, I could not agree more with you, because I feel like I've said that so many times to people. I'm like, stop trying to go back and find what was.
Right.
I mean, I'm a person believes that there's a reason for everything that happens. And so the things that happen, they happen for a reason, to give us an opportunity to make shifts and pivots and to come to a place of like retrospective, like what's important, right? What's important to us? Where should my focus lie? And like what your client did sounds awesome, like having that shift of saying, you know what, I want to be here. I want to be present more for my family. and for my kids. And that's so important. And I love seeing people who, even now that, you know, the world is, you know, moving in a different place and people are back out, people are working, doing all the things. I love just seeing people who still are holding to, well, actually, no, I realized that, you know, I wanted this flexibility. I wanted these things. And I mean, like, even for like myself and like my husband, I mean, you know, our life very much has shifted from, you know, 2 years ago. I mean, we put a lot of investments in our house, like a lot of people did, right? You were here. So it's like, we did a lot of things, you know, at home that we weren't doing before, because we were always like out working, you know, going places and stuff. And it's like, we laugh now because we used to be those people, like our every Friday date night was like, we were going to dinner and a movie. Like, it was all the time. It was like everybody knew that, oh yeah, we know Kyra's going, a girl, wait, what are y'all seeing tonight? And now, I mean, we haven't even honestly stepped foot back in the theater since 2020. And, you know, with all the streaming, you know, now we can just watch things. And we like built out our media room, like we go date night there. Like we do all the things we've got, you know, we've got our popcorn, we've got all those things, and we go down there and we have like date nights. And so at first I kept thinking to myself, like, like, should we go back? Like, don't you want to go back? Don't you miss it? Like, and my husband was like, I mean, he's like, I mean, we can go, like, if you want to go. I mean, but like, I kind of enjoy like the thing that we do here. Like, I like this thing. And so it's just those things of like, where you thought like, wow, like, I can't imagine never doing this. Now it's just become like, you know, an afterthought to do that thing.
And it's better than it was before in so many ways, right?
Yeah.
Like, we were so busy, and now we're the same way. We have a media room. There's nothing better than a Friday night curling up with all the kids and everybody. And we have this huge couch, and we still mostly end up all in one corner, right? Like, things have changed, but we don't always know how resilient we are until it's forced upon us, like it was. But It was forced. And so if we can really focus on what we learned through that time, and then make our choices, because we do have a choice. And some people have gone back more to what it was before because that's where they thrived. And so many people have said, you know what, we've got something better now, and I'm not giving this up.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Yes. I feel that exact same way. It's like, I don't want to let anybody else in on this. Like, this was the thing that we like, this is our thing. This is what we do. And so it became just this special thing. Like, I always used to tell people, I was like, I'm so glad, I'm so blessed and fortunate that I was able to find transition to a new job that is all remote. Because with my puppy, well, he's not a puppy, he'll always be my puppy, but with Max, I mean, we were together like all the time during the pandemic, the year 2020, 2021. And my husband, like, he owns his own business. So he had to go back out, like, after the shutdown was over, he went back to work every day. And so it was just he and I all the time. And even now, like, I have to travel sometimes for work to go up to the office, and we have separation anxiety. Like, when I leave, it's very different. You know, if I go to the doctor, if I do anything, it's very different from, like, my husband leaves every day and he's just kind of like, bye. But like, if I leave, it's like, you know, looking around for me, it's like at the door. And I just, you know, tell people, I'm like, well, I'm really unwilling to like spin that around for him so that he has to like look for me often. Like, I go there when I have to appointments or things that I have to do, whatever. But like, I also have a little fur person here that's like expecting me to be here. And I was like, and he like grew up. I was like, he like grew up in the pandemic. So all he knows really is like his mama and his daddy.
There is no other life for him, right?
No, right? Yeah. So when I'm not here, he's like looking around like, where's that lady? Yeah, we even had to get to a point to where, like, when I do travel, like, my husband, like, generally we would do like, you know, video chat or whatever. And I'd be like, let me see Max. And then, but the last time, like, he just spiraled and was like running around the house for so long trying to find me. So now we just pretend like, you know, I said, well, let's not do it because I won't be gone that long. I'm usually not gone more than like 1 to 2 days. So I'm like, let's not do it. And when I come back, it's like a full on, like, like attack me at the door, and we're like all in each other's faces. Oh my gosh. Okay. So tell me your advice for women who are listening, watching, moms, especially, that want to be a super mom at home, but also, they have a career and they don't want to sacrifice, but they want to be the best they can for all areas of their life.
Yeah, so many things. Oh my gosh. Number one, don't try to do it all.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I became a new mom, I was still trying to just continue elevating in my career just as fast as I was before that, trying to have everything perfect at home. I love a good clean house, everything in its place. Still continue to try to do that. Now I have kids, so I want a perfectly balanced meal on the table every night, right? That quality time with the kids was just literally trying to do it all. And we were not created to do that. It's so much pressure, I think, especially as women, that we put on ourselves to do everything perfectly. And we look at other women and think that they're doing it, when really the best thing is to not do it all and to ask for help where we need it. And so for me, that has turned into hiring someone to clean my house. That has turned into ordering meals in sometimes. That has turned into using products like HelloFresh, where the meal just shows up and nobody has to decide what we're having for dinner, because I already decided it before I ordered it. Now we're just going to cook it. It looks like my husband stays home with the kids when they're sick, usually, because he has a sick leave policy that allows for that. It's, oh my gosh, I can't even get into how much my in-laws do for me, just in helping out with the kids, just in living life. And so it has become so much more abundant life because of the help that I've allowed and not tried to do it all, and really leaned into what makes the most sense. I've worked with women who have said, you know what, there's a laundry service in my neighborhood. And so once a week they show up, I hand them everything and it comes back hung up and ironed or folded exactly the way that I want it. And just that has been so freeing for them. And so just finding what it is for you, where you cannot do it all, but ask for help in the right places. Because again, I think so much revolves around our home and our personal life. But that's where we start and end every single day, right? So when that's in chaos, I feel like the whole work day is in chaos.
Yes.
And it never ends. And so for me, it has always been more important to kind of get that chaos under control at home, so that then I can really get to work and focus and be present there, come home and be present with my family.
Yeah, I like that. And I agree. I mean, I think that works. I think that applies. Those principles could apply to anyone, parents or non-parents, or because just like you said, giving yourself, it kind of comes back to what we talked about earlier, like giving yourself that grace that it's okay. Because I know I used to be like, oh, I got to put dinner on the table like every night. And, I didn't, I had the weekends, I didn't cook on like Friday and Saturdays. But then during the week, when I just started getting I'm like, sometimes, you know what, it's okay if we order in, like I don't have to be cooking physically like every day. And so I just love that. And I love the, like you said, getting the help where you need it, like grocery shopping, Instacart, hello. I don't shop at all. Well, I wasn't shopping before the pandemic because I had gone to Instacart then, but I mean, I definitely never am going to go back to the grocery store if I can help it myself, because I'm like, well, because somewhere these people, they like shopping and they get paid to shop and they like it. So I'm going to let them do it.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. And when we can translate that into our workday then and surround ourselves with staff, right, that can help us in areas that we need, delegate in areas so that we can empower our staff to do more, take things off our plate, that really does help us to level up as well. It's a basic, it's so basic, but so hard for us to do. But I think once we do that, again, that first easy step, then we're like, oh, why didn't I do that sooner? Why didn't I, bring that staff person into the project a year ago? Why didn't I start using Instacart the day that it was available to me? Right?
It takes time. It takes time.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about how anyone listening or watching can work with you?
Yeah, so I do some various programs. Sometimes I'll just do a 90-minute if somebody has something specific they want coaching on to work through. So I do some really short packages, but most of what I do is 6 or 12-month coaching. And that could be a specific, like a time management, priorities management, defining success, where we go through specific methodologies. But it also could be just be in the area of general professional coaching. So maybe looking to level up your confidence, really, learning to kind of find your voice in the workplace and stand out in the boardroom. There's various aspects of that. And so I like to really tailor it to the individual and what they're looking for. Sometimes that actually looks like getting started coaching and then really finding the thing that's at the core of it. And so shifting a little bit. But that's where I think a 12-month program is really ideal, because it takes some time to get, into. It takes time to really elicit change. And that just really brings me joy when somebody starts to find that voice and really steps into who they are and finds that abundant life that's just waiting for them.
Yes. Awesome. All right. Well, I had a great time chatting with you today. This was so good. We're going to shift into 3 things with Susan, where we're going to learn just a little bit more about you. My first question is a 2-parter. How do you start and end your day?
Oh, that's a good one. So start and end. So starting in the morning, I like to get up early. I'm like you, get up early, get started on my day. I like to have a cup of coffee and have either some devotional time. Actually, I've started doing Bible study with my daughter in the mornings now.
Oh.
She's 15. And so while I love it's been really special to implement that with her. And so that's been really nice for me. But then I also have a startup day once I get to my desk in the morning. And so there I take the first 30 minutes and I focus on cleaning out my emails a little bit. I spend a little bit of time on LinkedIn, check out my calendar for the day, and then I get started on my day. And I know that so many time management studies will say, do the first thing, the most important thing first, or get that focus time in first. But for me, clutter distracts me. So I've got to kind of just take a little bit to clean out that inbox, like know that there's nothing, pressing there. Just allow myself that little bit of time, and then I can really focus. So I like my morning routine, both personally and at the office.
Awesome. And how do you end the day?
So kind of the same, actually. So in the work day, I like to end my day with the same, like that last half hour, checking emails again, like kind of making sure that's cleaned out, anything responded to that needed to be. Check my calendar for the next day. Like, what do I have laid out for tomorrow? Does it still make sense for me? When do those meetings start?
Right.
And just kind of doing that same thing, but kind of feeling like I'm shutting down for the day, so that when I walk away, there's nothing left open. I can kind of free up my brain space to continue on with my day. And now my personal routine at night maybe isn't quite as defined, but just kind of cleaning up, relaxing a little bit before going to bed.
Awesome. Love that. All right. Number 2, is there a book, a podcast, song, or something that just gets you like motivated that you're just loving right now?
Oh, yeah. I always like to be reading, and I am definitely a personal and professional development junkie. One of the books that I'm just finishing up now is Influencer. And that one has been really interesting because I was working on a presentation on change management. So great book for that. So many good insights. So finishing up that one. But I also like to be reading something personally. And I've been reading Jenny Allen's Find Your People. And it really has been a hugely impactful book that she wrote, because in COVID, we really isolated ourselves so much. And so it's kind of coming back to finding your people again, like reintroducing how we connect, and spending time in community is so important. And so that one has been really, really good to dig into.
Okay. I'm just taking these notes myself, writing those books down. Looks like Max is out there hearing it, and he's chiming in too.
Yes.
Awesome. So can you tell us what's on the horizon for you in 2023?
Yeah, I'm really excited for 2023 because I have met with another coach, and we're actually looking at expanding that practice into working specifically with CPAs. And so while I'm a CPA and a coach, this really combines the best of both worlds, where we really focus on leadership within CPA firms and developing the professionals within. And so that is super exciting for me as I look into next year.
Awesome. I love that for you. All right. Well, thank you so much again. Before I let you go, I would like for you to tell the audience three things. Two things. First, three things that you'd like for the audience to take away. And then lastly, how can people connect to you as well?
Okay, great. Three things. Okay, so definitely define success and what that means for you so that you can really know what's most important and go after that wholeheartedly. So define your success and just go after it, because no one else is going to get you there if you don't look for it yourself. And then work hard on what matters. Like really, I mean, it just is driven from that defining success, but work really hard on what matters and really set some boundaries so that you can focus on that and not get distracted by everybody else's priorities, because it's so easy to do. And then just be flexible. If COVID taught us nothing else, it's that we can be resilient. And so if we can be flexible and just revisit what our priorities are, and if your workout needs to change twice a week to support you, be flexible and allow that and do that. So those are the three things that I would say. Define success, make sure you know what's most important and go after it, and just be flexible. Give yourself some grace.
Awesome. Love that.
Yeah.
And lastly, tell the audience how they can connect to you.
How they can connect. So I am on LinkedIn. That's really the social media platform that I hang out on the most. And that is Stutzel Coaching. And also have my website, which is susanstutzel.com.
Perfect. And we'll have those links in the show notes as well.
Perfect.
All right. Well, Susan, thank you so much for such a great chat today. Had such a good time talking to you.
Yes, thank you. I loved how much we have in common, and it was a great conversation. Thank you for inviting me into it.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned, everyone. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the Glow Up Gyrl podcast. I'm Kyra. Thanks again to Susan for joining the show today. If you'd like to learn more about her, check out the links in our show notes. If you'd like to learn more about Glow Up Gyrl, visit us at glowupgirl.com. You can check out past podcast episodes. You can sign up to be a guest on the show, grab our social links, and so much more. And I hope you guys are also checking out the Career Focus podcast episodes as well, where I share my personal journey relating to my career. These episodes are great for anyone who is looking to just determine if it's time for a change. Is it time to try and elevate in your career, or just to hear some feedback from someone who may have gone through something similar that you might be experiencing currently in your career. You can listen to those episodes as well on your favorite podcast platform or over at our website at glowupgirl.com. Thank you all, as always, for the support and for taking a little time out of your day to join me. I'll see you all soon. So until then, stay focused, fab, and glow up. Take care, everyone.